this world is screwed mainly because people are making babies who are not prepared to bring them up properly. With that said, if every baby was born within a married home with a mother and father to bring them up, hopefully properly, I believe all these problems would start working themselves out because we'd be bringing up a better child. We'd be breeding a better person. I believe that we need to start breeding better people. How do you do that? You get married before you have a child, or you get to a point in life where you say, I'm ready to have a child, and I'm prepared to take care of that child and give them a good upbringing. That is the biggest problem in the world, because if that problem was solved, well, all the stupidity we see and face today would work itself out, because I believe common sense, which is lacking, it's so lacking. Common sense would come back into play. I believe kids would be brought up properly. They'd be brought up better. They'd know right from wrong more often. Now, I'm not saying the world would be a perfect place, but just consider a world where you did not make a baby unless you were prepared. What the fuck is it with people making babies? How is it they don't get told not to make babies? One thing, don't make babies. Don't do it unless you're prepared. Show some self-control. Somebody needs to mentor these kids to not have babies unless they are prepared to have that child and bring them up properly and can afford to have that child and bring it up properly. If we could work out that dilemma, if we could forget about all the wrong in the world right now, just focus on that dilemma and make it so we could take the unwed mother thing or the teenage pregnancy thing and bring it down to a minimal, the world would turn into a much better place. Now, I know I'm asking for a lot. I know I'm asking for a lot. But could you imagine? Could you imagine everybody making babies when the time was right? I wouldn't have to feed so many of them. I would not have to pay out of my taxes and wherever it comes from to send checks in the mail to people who can't afford to live. I would not have to go out of my way to take home less money in my paycheck, because so much of it goes to people who were born to, say, teenage mothers who were financially inept and need help and assistance. And then what happens often is these children, usually, you got one teenage mother, usually they're a teenage mother. It's like a domino effect, and it just goes on. It spirals out of control. And then they get comfortable living. They get comfortable living in the way they live. Like, they live, say, in subsidized housing. And what happens is they breed in subsidized housing, and the next generation lives there. See, the whole point of that is to get on your feet, better yourself, move up, move out. But I don't think they're taught that. I think they're taught that, you know what, this is the way it is. This is what goes on in the world. And look at all this traffic. Anyway, they're taught that's just the way it is, and it's acceptable. It is so acceptable. I'd be so embarrassed by that. I'd be embarrassed. I mean, look, I had a mother and a father, and I don't know, I didn't have much money or anything like that. I moved out at the age of 17. I didn't have it easy. I worked for everything I have. No one has ever handed me anything. No one's ever helped me with my business or anything like that. I worked my ass off to get where I was. And that's the problem. Today, people are born with their mouths open like birds and their hands out, and they receive. And they receive what's mine. They receive what it is I work for. And it's okay. And they can get by in that amount. And it's okay and it's normal to wait for that check every month. Somebody else's money. Whoa! That one sucked. That was my lunch. But seriously, it's fucking ridiculous how many fucking people get government aid, state assistance, and all the rest of the bullshit just so these asshole politicians can suck them into a vote. It's a fucking monopoly. It's fucked. And here we are. The people who can survive, the people who do, working our asses off to better themselves, to get by, to have a future for their families, just so money can be taken from us to give to people who don't have. Because they choose not to have. They choose not to succeed. Now, I'm not talking about every poor person. I'm just talking about the poor people who don't give a shit about taking money that's handed to them and don't try to better themselves so they can make their own money and make their own way in life. Ignorance breeds ignorance. You know, it's just ridiculous. And it's not a color thing. It's not a racial thing. It's not like you know, I mean, yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. It's just not any of that, because there's people in all areas that are like that. Maybe in certain areas there's more whites or more blacks or more Hispanic that are in that demographic, but it's everybody. Ignorance breeds ignorance. And you know what? There are a lot of people who just shouldn't breed. And the sad thing is, there are so many people who shouldn't breed that breed, and then there are people who can't even have babies that shouldn't have babies. That's what sucks. That's what fucks up. Yeah. But I know of people with 5, 6, and 7 kids I know personally that will live in subsidized housing. Their grandparents in their 30s and 40s. I mean, it's fucking mind-boggling. And they take, and they take, and they take, and they don't give back. They give nothing back. They are the problems. They are the people who need to be dealt with. Somebody needs to go where those people are and say, hey, breeding is not a good idea unless you are financially prepared to take care of said child. I mean, it's fucking common sense. I'm not saying anything that people don't know, but hey, if you're a politician, you can't talk about that because you gotta suck dick to get the fucking vote. And you gotta suck everybody's dick. And you gotta try and do it evenly, and you gotta try to appease everybody. Fuck that shit. You know what?